If you clicked on this video, most likely you're a new player probably struggling how to learn with stress, or you might actually be a more veteran player and you finally hit champion level, and the stress game really does change in champion level, hence why almost all my gameplay, I think all of it, is actually going to be from champion, because if you know how to handle stress on champion level, you're going to be able to take all of these same aspects, rules, and things and take them back to obviously veteran and apprentice. If you're not really playing the game anymore, but you're watching because you're a subscriber, drop down some comments below on what really worked for you, because it's very difficult to get all the things you can do to reduce stress in one video, and having many minds is better than just having one. So with that introduction, let's get into stress and what stress is all about in Darkest Dungeon. So first we're going to talk about where you can actually get stress from. It's a very important thing to know. Obviously, it's curios. I'm not really going to show curios in this video. Go look them up on the wiki, see which ones can reduce stress, see which ones can give you stress if you do them incorrectly, or if it's just a percent-based chance. There are those that exist. Then there's just casually walking throughout the dungeon. That's really just going to happen regardless of what you do. Ways to reduce that: if you're really paranoid or really don't like getting that, you can put on trinkets that will obviously reduce that stress. And I should, but I don't really put trinkets as a source of stress. They either increase or decrease, which you could argue could obviously increase your stress, but they're not the main source. By putting on the trinket alone, you're really not going to get stress from that. It's just going to either amplify or nullify a little bit of stress, and we will talk about that once you get into a later game. You can do that. Traps are a big one. They can add a lot of stress, but actually minusing 8 stress at a time can also be a huge way to do it. So for traps, I'm going to talk about scouting and obviously beefing up disarm and having someone who's pretty reliable at disarm, because you can remove 8 stress at a good amount of times, and if you're lucky and unlucky, you might get a dungeon with a decent amount of traps, and that'll really allow you actually to reduce some of that stress you've taken just either walking or from a big fight. And then finally, we're going to get to the obvious part: enemies. Enemies are going to give you a lot of stress, but are also going to give you opportunities to obviously take battles and decrease stress. And I lied, there's finally campfires. I'm not really going to go over campfires too much, it's pretty straightforward. I'll do it right now. Obviously, you can eat the max food, which minuses 10 stress across people, and then look at the skills, which will allow you to minus stress as well. So campfires can be a good way through like the abilities Encourage, and the Houndmaster has a couple of good stress relief abilities as well. So just look at those if you're really curious on how well you can campfire and remove stress that way. Let's get to traps and scouting first, just real quick. It's really hard in the early game. This is where late game scouting is going to be so much more effective. You're going to see me get a lot of scouts because I have some buildings, though I think a couple of footage I have DLCs activated, and then other footage I don't. And in the hardest difficulty for the Mark and Bark comp, which is the Houndmaster, Cultist, Man-at-Arms, and Bounty Hunter, I don't have like any DLCs equipped, but you do see I have 2 trinkets on, which give me about 45 to 50% scouting. And then with the light where it's at, I believe I get about a 60 to 70% to scout, and that's amazing. So you will see I have most of the traps discovered, most of the enemies discovered. So that'd be a good way to segue into enemies. Realistically, if you want to keep your stress down, you probably want surprises. Surprises are definitely the easiest way to avoid a lot of stress. They allow you to prioritize stress damage dealers. We went over the 4/5 sources of stress, were stress healing, and now we're going to talk about the I call it 2 theories of stress management. There's reactionary and preventative. And this is where we really get into it. Reactionary is probably something we cling to on rather early. We probably have a decent amount of jesters in our rosters early on in the game. And why is that? Their single target stress heal is just too darn good. So it's a very easy crutch for when you don't really know the beginning game. You're getting hit with stress spells, you're not really targeting properly. You're more worried about dying in the physical sense than you are obviously by heart attacks and afflictions. So I know for me, I had a couple of jesters my first playthrough, like a good amount, just because I could have a Vestal Jester, they took care of my heals and they took care of my stress as I just kind of muddled through the early game, mid game, and even into late game, where I eventually had to change that party comp, because even though they could heal all that stuff really well, I realized I wasn't keeping up. And that brings me to my next point, where we have preventative. Preventative is a whole combination of stuff. It's insanely higher speeds, it's good pulls, it's good stuns. If you get the scouts, it's scouting and surprise chances, because realistically with really good surprise chances, you can obviously surprise the whole enemy composition, and that'll really allow you to pick that 1 or 2 people you just want to blow up or stun immediately. And if you have lower speed heroes, it's almost a crucial and essential way you have to do it. If you have high speed heroes, you may not always need surprises. I mean, there's really no reason why you would never not take a surprise, but if you at least have like heroes who consistently have speeds between maybe like 9 and 11, you could be like, okay, you know what? I don't really need surprises. I mean, they would always help, but that's gone. And if you have a Jester, you could argue maybe by round 2, but once again, you have to take 1 turn to battle and all that stuff, so it's a setup, but after that, you would probably have the advantage. So we're going to look at some videos here, and I'm going to kind of talk about what I'm doing here and ways you can reduce stress. So the first couple of ways are going to be mostly reactionary, which means I'm going to have a decent stress healer in the party that's single target with a little bit increase in the stress heal department. Alright, so in this fight I actually did not scout, which is something that's very beneficial. But as you can see here with the surprise, I start off by hitting the back row, and what you're going to see me try to do is mitigate the middle row and keep sending people forward if I could. Now the trinket I had on the bounty hunter wasn't exactly ideal for this situation, and as you can see I'm trying to hit this stress damage dealer through AoE attacks so I can still chip him down even though he's invisible. Now characters who could deal with that, someone like the Plague Doctor could Plague Grenade stun both of those rows, so this stress wave technically couldn't come through yet. Now this is one of my later games, which means I have a lot of good trinkets and building upgrades which allow my heroes a little more dodge and stuff. There will be other points where I will have not these buildings, but right now I'm showing you like the best of best scenarios where your heroes are maxed out. You can kind of see the stuff you can get away with. So there's another stress wave, and this one does connect. Now this party I have 2 strong sources of stress heals, which is why I don't necessarily have to be as strong in all my preventative strikes, because I have the Cry Havoc and I also have Inspiring Cry on the Crusader, which you can see just removes stress pretty well, and I can still Hound's Harry for criticals and whatnot. Now here's the interesting thing if you have AoE based abilities, and I will try to find it later in the video. I don't know if I get one, but sometimes you'll see me finish enemies with an AoE attack if there's another corpse on the field, and the reason why I do that is if there's a corpse on the field and you critically strike it, but you also hit a standard based enemy, you will actually get the stress heal from a critical strike. If you just critically strike on a corpse, you don't obviously get the stress heal or I believe the stress buff. So therefore, by doing an AoE onto a corpse and an enemy, you can actually stress heal, get your critical strike buff as well, I believe. So it's very important to do that when you can. And now that I have the enemy isolated, I'm going to be marking him up for my Houndmaster and obviously my Bounty Hunter here to get rid of them as quickly as possible. I am going to do one last Cry Havoc because I believe my Crusader is going to be able to finish him based on his level of HP as he does. But as you can see there, I got I think almost 50 stress on my Houndmaster and we got him down to 16 there. Now we got another fight, once again, Invis. But we can wash, rinse, repeat this essentially. We can do some Hound's Harry AoEs, we can get some Zealous Accusation AoEs, we can also punch back the Cultist Champions, which will allow the guy in the front to only do, you'll see his one ability, it's Stab. Now I wasn't getting very fortunate because of the trinket I put on the Bounty Hunter. I should have taken it off, but I just left it on because I didn't have a whole lot of space in my inventory. But realistically, what the Bounty Hunter should have been doing in this video was pushing people back and pulling them forward. It actually would have made this comp a lot better because I would have forced these Pelagic guys into just doing their one stab, which I believe you will actually see later in this video. Now I'll choose for a stun, not a Zealous Accusation, because I really want that dude to not create a corpse. So right now I'm trying not to create a corpse. So I'm just going to heal up here. I'm going to let him bleed out. I'm going to allow one more stress wave because once again, and that's why I'm also crying Havoc, I don't want that fish in the back anymore. Let him bleed out, move that forward, and eventually we can punch this dude. Or right there, the Tidemaster chose to do a heal. So by getting rid of the body and moving up the Tidemaster closer, I'm actually forcing them into less destructive decisions. And as you can see, by punching back that Tidemaster, now I really can do whatever. I can either try Zealous, which was okay, missed, but I could have done an Inspiring Cry. I pretty much have this party at its weakest point, and now I'm going to go for the kill shot on the Cultist Champion because that's where the actual damage is going to come from in crits. Ceremonial Cut, you will see, is such a bad ability. And see, you hear me go for the AoE. It just allows more chances for criticals. It was just enough damage to kill off the champion, so I'm not taking a whole turn to kill a champion. He still dies. I have an Inspiring Cry left. I can heal the Houndmaster. I could have done the Crusader himself. So obviously it's some pretty good choices I could have done there. Once again, Ceremonial Cut. It's a very terrible accuracy. I don't even think it hits 90. It might, but regardless, it's just not all that good. So, and now I'm done playing around. I pretty much got around what I need. I'm still going to do a couple of stuns. I can get like another Cry Havoc off and stuff, which is actually brings me to my next point. Find the proper amount of time you can play with your food. And what I mean by that is just see where you can push the limit, where you know it, you're like, enemy reinforcements don't show up or my people don't stress themselves out. Find that sweet spot, because it is indeed a sweet spot. I cap off my Crusader, and now the next person is going to kill shot. If he didn't miss. I mean, I am actually trying to kill this dude now. There we go, 45 crit. He'll get some more stress for my party, getting that crit and stuff. So boom, once again, we have everybody very low. Now what I will say is I have some of the best trinkets in the game and stuff, so it is going to be a little easier for me to do some stuff. We're just going to examine one more fight after this, because I don't want to take the whole video just talking about random fights, but I do want to show you fights with specific stress counts. Alright, this one, it's a pretty good one. We got a Witch, and we also got a SQuiDZ. Once again, same exact composition. As you can see, I was entering this room with 0 stress already, so that's a pretty big deal. So what we're going to try to do here, what I wanted to do was pull the Cultist Witch forward to kill her. And now that I missed her, this is the interesting part. I have to change gears now, because the SQuiDZ is indeed going to be the next point, which is why I'm marking him, because he's going to come forward and he's going to do Maddening Shanty right away. Fortunately, it is a miss, and now I'm just going to try to do my best. It was low damage, however, it is unholy, which is why the Crusader is such a strong choice. And right there, you see that 53 crit. The Crusader is very good in the Cove. He's got stress heals. He can do unholy damage against some unholy based enemies in the very late game. And now we have just one stress damage dealer left in the Cultist Witch. She does have an ability called Stressful Incantation. However, she doesn't use it here, but the pull and the push still stress a little bit, so you can see some of that in action. But because she decided to use her turn already, I wasn't too big in like pulling her forward. She's already marked. So I'm going to lower the guard, and now I can kind of play around. I can go for a stun on the Cultist Witch. I can go just for a straight kill shot. I can decide to stun the Cultist Champion. There's a lot of things I can do here. Because what I really want to do is not use excessive force to kill one person, and as you can see, that mark really did the job. So not using excessive force, but still prioritizing stress damage dealers with your best characters is essential. Because I could have done 2 attacks onto the Cultist Witch herself, but it would have really used 2 of my actions, and I would have had one of those, and I would have had the Cultist Champion in front here, able to take his turn right now, which could have been easily crit, which adds more stress. Now, I also could have failed in killing the Cultist Witch in one shot, and we would have to hopefully assume one of my heroes beat her in speed, which doesn't always happen. So it was playing with fire a little bit, but I was trying it to the best of my efficiency, and I got fortunate it worked out for me. Now for this guy at the end here, you might see me just play around a little bit. And once again, see me Hound's Harry, and boom, you watch the stress disappear. I didn't get the critical strike on the Pelagic Champion, but I did get it onto the corpse while I hit the Pelagic Champion. We exit this dungeon with 0 stress. This was, I believe, a medium. I didn't even use the campfire. As you can see, my I have a little DLC on, well, not DLC, I have a mod on. So it's actually the Dark Souls sword, but it's just a campfire regardless. So I exit with 0 stress, didn't even use my campfire, and I'm probably going to use it at the end here, but you don't need to see that. You'll just see me hover over a couple abilities, such as like Encourage. The Houndmaster does have a couple, I just don't have them equipped. But overall, a great dungeon. I literally leave with 0 stress in the Cove, which is such a big deal. As you can see, we start this dungeon out with a beautiful double scout, and you see those multiple traps littered throughout. We will use that later as a form of stress heals on my people, which is where I come back to. Scouts are super beneficial to remove stress at times. Now, fortunately, this isn't the strength in which this enemy comp could have been at, but I'm going to look around here, because the large flesh eaters do stress damage in a different way. They do it in the sense of huge criticals, which I will just keep a little pin in that. But then you start seeing me focus on the Swine Thunderer, because now I'm like, alright, I got that big dude marked up. I'm going to activate my riposte and attempt to kill this guy. It's a fortunate crit. It's not going to kill him off directly, but what it does is it lowers the Thunderer's HP just to enough And this is where we get into preventative stress. As you can see, I only took the damage from the stress from the critical strike on that. So if he actually didn't get a critical strike, I wouldn't have taken any stress. This is why Highwaymen and Man-at-Arms are so good, because they can allow you to essentially shut down stress-based damage abilities, because you need damage skills to activate repose. So some abilities don't sadly do damage, but they still stress, so be weary of who those enemies are. And there's the 60 crit. It's devastating. It's an immediate death store. Obviously it's a little bit of stress as well, but we're not going to talk about that. This isn't talking about how to survive. This is talking about how to deal with stress damage. And then there's a big crit to end it. So obviously critical strikes give you stress back. Killing enemies give you stress back. That's that fight. It got out pretty low. Everyone's below 10. Now, like I said, it wasn't a particularly hard fight. Only 2 enemies, but I did target the Thunderer right away. And once again, there's another Thunderer. So what you're going to see me do is first heal, because I don't have any HP. But once again, we're not talking about how to play the game. And then you're just going to see me go all out on the Thunderer, because if I was to take 1 turn to mark, I may not have had enough damage, because this is on the hardest difficulty. You will see enemies' HPs higher than normal, because like I said, this is on the hardest difficulty, because I want to show you how on the hardest difficulty, with no super strong source of stress heal, no Crusader, no Jester, you can still exit dungeons in a great fashion. So that's what I really want to show. Now, Swinetars in general, you're going to see me exploit the crap out of these things. And what I mean by that is, they'll often trot retreat if they're in the first 2 positions with an enemy alive, or I believe a corpse alive. So you actually won't see me focus it all too much sometimes. Well, no, sorry. You're going to see me focus it, but not really the Swine Hooker, because I don't want that guy to die, because then he's going to revert to Pig Spears, he's going to revert to Crunching Backhand. So what we want, to avoid those big critical strike damage and stress-based abilities from the stress of getting critically struck, obviously, we want to avoid that. So obviously we're not going to kill off the guy in the front, and we're still going to just keep focusing the champion. And this is a form of stress protection, even though I got critically struck there. It happens, but it's not, at least it's not a lot of HP loss, nor was it a huge amount of stress. And you see me eating a dog bone here just to try to speed up the process, because I don't want to take too many more attacks. Obviously the general rule of thumb is, if you take more attacks, you allow yourself more opportunities to get critically hit, and that obviously adds stress across your whole party. So if you don't really have any way to heal stress damage, you're kind of screwed. And the reason why I punched the Meat Hooker here is because we're still in the same spot. The Meat Hooker is going to have to take its turn, which is going to stand there, and then the Swinetar is still going to trot retreat if it lived. So I take away a turn from the Meat Hooker, and I would have still had the same exact result. You're going to see me bellow again just to trash the speed and the dodge, and essentially we can follow up with a mark, heal, whatever here. So right at the end here, I pretty much have this guy mostly neutralized. I should probably still kill him this turn to avoid any potential bad things. So I am going to pull him forward probably here, yeah. Just to give me a chance to just like hit him with a Repose and a Hound's Harry. It could have been done anyways, but I just wanted to bring to the front row, just in case we didn't kill him that turn. The Bounty Hunter would have been ready next turn, even though I think with a double body, actually, he would have fell back. Now, once again, traps. You're going to see me utilize traps. You're going to be looking around, you're going to see me check everyone's traps. Disarm chance 65, too low. 95, only 3 stress though. 16, both 75. That's about where I draw the line. 75 to 80% is where I say, you know what, that's probably the lowest I'm willing to go on a trap disarm chance before it backfires. And on the next one, I'm not going to use my Man-at-Arms, because once again, he's below 10 stress, but he does have only a 95% disarm chance. And here I'll get into my little curio thing. This isn't a direct reduction in curio, but it is a powerful increase in attack power curio, which means I can kill people faster, which indirectly is a way to obviously saving more stress. So he has 95% chance, and he only had 7 stress, so it's like perfect. It was pretty much a non-failure situation, but I got rid of all my stress in total, so it was a win-win in that scenario. So I took it on the Bounty Hunter. Man-at-Arm has less than 8, and our Occultist has an okay amount, but for the amount of fights we've taken and stuff, it's not too bad. Now the 18 crit does suck. As you see, we popped that up to 31. That's still not the end of the world. We do have a Houndmaster who at least has the ability to take care of that. And as you can see here, we are going to pull forward. And I look back on that and I actually regret doing that because of one huge reason. I get the Swine Thunderer killed easily, but I have just opened up myself to a Pig Spear, which you're going to see what that is capable of doing. Okay, sorry, so first the initial trot retreat. And here's what you actually do. So it's actually another video where I think I screw up, where it's in the same one just a little later. You're wondering, why the heck did you kill the body? Well, now we're just going to do exactly what we did before. Once again, Swine Tar second position, hook where it hurts. He's going to back up, now he has to trot retreat. You're going to pretty much watch the same exact thing happen. Now the reason why I'm still talking to you about this, not skipping, is this is something very important you have to get down. You have to learn your enemy comps, how to exploit them, and then in your turns, where the heck you're getting your stress heals in at. So we are going to watch this fight through just one more time, because I think it's very beneficial to show whole battle examples where things go typically right and where things go horribly wrong. Now for some reason in this scenario I kind of blanked and I started killing the meat hooker, which it makes no sense. I should have just followed what I did earlier, but I didn't, and you're going to see it really comes back to biting the butt. And I kind of regretted doing it because I started looking around and I was like, why did I kill the meat hooker? You're going to see it. There's huge ramifications for not doing composition correctly. So in the same video you saw me neutralize this party very well, and now in this video, well, this part of the video, you're going to see me do it very poorly. Like I said, it was a mental error, but as you can see, just a 2-attack mental error has now given me the situation of an extremely deadly enemy that I can't really stun well, I can't really burst well, and I never had to take the critical strike damages. So as you can see, 2 attacks has essentially possibly led me to massive damage. And I can't really cry havoc either, because I need this dude killed right away, because he's just going to keep crunching backhand. That could be stuns, that could be critical strikes. I mean, the endless possibilities are there, because my occultist can't do any like critical strikes with his mark ability. I have to hope he gets decent heals, which thankfully he did, but 2 attacks could have possibly completely derailed. And as you see me there, I go for a desperation stun. I do cry havoc here just to try to remove a little bit, because the crunching backhand, as painful as it can be, it is probably the Swine Tar's worst ability. I mean, next to Trot Retreat, because Trot Retreat obviously does nothing and can be manipulated. But if you have an enemy who's just going to crunching backhand the whole time, it's actually not too terrible. So I did decide to try to take that one moment just to get some stress off people. It did work a little bit. And here you go. We're going to see one more fight of... Even though the dungeon's over, I could leave. But this is another good way to get rid of stress. And I had these guys already scouted, which means my surprise chance was going to be really high. Now, this is a difficult situation, because I would have preferred the bounty hunter have gone first, but it's okay. And I can't hit the back row. And the reason why I didn't just mark the large flesh eater and then hit him with the mark base ability was I wanted to get them both marked, because I still had that dog treat left. But what you are going to see me do here is bellow. I was trying to reduce all their speeds to nothing. So this first round was a lot of setup. And I do use a dog bone here, and I'm going to kill the large flesh eater first for a couple of reasons. It takes up the 2 positions, which means it's very hard for my bounty hunter to get involved. And B, it probably has the much bigger crits, which are going to ruin my party faster. Now my Houndmaster getting stuns, it's not great because that's actually a large source of my damage. But we're just going to try to deal with it and try to kill this large flesh eater. Thankfully I get a crit on that dagger, which will allow me to retribution this out. Even if it doesn't kill it on the obviously the main damage, it will bleed out, which is actually preferable in this situation, because now there's not a huge big body there just stopping me from getting to the Swine Slayer. And now that we're just on the Swine Slayer, we can play around with this dude. He doesn't have great stun resist, so obviously we get stunned right on the punch right away. And now we can heal up, we can decide to mark, whatever we want. This is where we can take care of our party. And this is where you really learn how to remove stress. Now as you can see, I only get it 1 out of 3 people sadly. But the idea is I can attack this guy multiple times with weak abilities. I can keep doing Hound's Harries. I can mark him to finish him if I need to now. And I do decide to finish him based on the fact that I don't actually have a lot of stress on my people remaining. Sadly, he gets to go before it's over. It's not a critical strike, which is good, but it's still a shame he got to go because it could have been a critical strike. And that's why you actually see me try to bellow there. I wanted to reduce his speeds just for one more round of whatever, whether I could kill shot or get a cry havoc off, but I do just decide to kill him based on that situation. Now to finish out the video, I'm going to walk to that trap, remove 6 more stress or some stress off the Houndmaster, but meanwhile I'm just going to kind of reiterate everything I've gone through. It's been a lot. If you use reactionary measures, just make sure you have good stress heals and you still kill stress healers first. That's pretty much all I'm going to say there. Get good camping skills, get your stress skills up, you should be fine. Though I think eventually you should start sliding into preventative measures, because what preventative measures allow you to do is obviously take in more highly aggressive party comps, which means you're killing everybody much quicker, which means you take less attacks. It's just amazing. Riposte can save you from a lot of stress damage, which is also really good. And finally, scouting. Surprises for either style are just the best. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a couple of things in this video, and like and subscribe below.